Never use these perfumes. There are fragrances in the spiritual realm far more potent than anything bottled by man. These are the unseen perfumes of the soul, the vibrations we carry, the energies we release, and the silent messages we send into the universe long before we speak a word. Many walk through life unaware that they are clothed in invisible scents that either attract divine favor or repel divine encounters. Just as a foul odor can turn someone away in the natural, there are spiritual perfumes that turn away miracles, delay blessings, and close the doors heaven once opened. These are not perfumes from a store, they are the inner conditions of the heart: self-pity, envy, bitterness, fear, and pride. These fragrances do not touch the nose but choke the spirit. They do not stain the skin but saturate the soul. And if you are to walk in power, favor, and divine alignment, you must cast them off like old garments and anoint yourself with the aroma of faith, gratitude, forgiveness, and divine surrender. Today you will learn what not to wear in the spirit, because some perfumes are so toxic they cancel destiny. Never use these perfumes. The perfume of self-pity repels the promises of God. There is a subtle fragrance many wear without realizing it, a spiritual aroma that does not come from a bottle, but from a belief system, a deep, unconscious acceptance of defeat and rejection. This fragrance is called self-pity, and though it often hides beneath the mask of humility and being real, it is a direct contradiction to the truth of who you are in the eyes of God. Self-pity is not comfort, and it is never compassion. It is the soul's rebellion against faith, a perfume of sorrow that cries out not for healing but for permission to remain broken. It is the belief that your suffering is greater than your hope, that your trials are more permanent than your transformation. When you wear self-pity, you emit a signal that repels heaven's promises. Why? Because God responds to faith, not to complaints. God reacts to vision, not victimhood. The moment you begin to indulge in self-pity, you align your inner world with the lie that you have been forgotten, that the universe is against you, and that your story ends in sorrow. And yet, the truth is that self-pity is a choice, not a condition. It is an inner state crafted by the imagination, built with thoughts that replay wounds and rehearse injustices until your identity is swallowed by them. When you say, "No one sees me, no one cares, nothing ever works out for me," you are not just speaking emotionally, you are programming your subconscious to believe that your destiny is to be overlooked. But you were never created to be overlooked. You were designed to radiate the image of the Creator, to walk in dominion, to create through consciousness. And here lies the danger. The longer you wear the perfume of self-pity, the more blind you become to your power. You no longer see doors opening because you stop knocking. You no longer expect beauty because you have become addicted to your ashes. What you do not realize is that every time you embrace the identity of the wounded, you silently deny the identity of the chosen. You cannot be both. You must choose, and if you choose to see yourself as a victim of life, then life must conform to your perception. The law is simple. What you feel to be true within yourself will shape the world around you. This is not merely psychology. This is spiritual law. It is written in the fabric of your being that your inner state is the cause and your outer world the effect. So what happens when you constantly dwell in self-pity? You repeat cycles. You attract people who confirm your brokenness. You miss divine appointments because you assume they are for someone more qualified. You cry out for healing while hugging your wounds. You ask for deliverance while defending your chains. And the divine, loving, all-wise spirit that governs the universe waits not to punish, but to respond not to your desperation, but to your transformation. You see, pity from others may feel like comfort, but it is not healing. It may soothe the ego, but it starves the spirit. True healing comes when you step out of the role of the wounded and dare to believe, even while trembling, that you are more than your past. And this is the invitation that eternity whispers to every soul: cast off the old perfume. Do not wear the scent of sorrow as your identity. Do not baptize your story in endless why me questions. Do not rehearse your disappointments until they become your doctrine. You are not what happened to you, you are what you choose to become in response to it. So ask yourself, what am I? Rehearsing in secret, what inner monologue runs through my mind when no one is around? Is my soul clothed in the oil of joy or the scent of despair? For if you truly knew who walked with you, if you truly grasped how near the answer is, how close the breakthrough lies, you would not mourn, you would prepare. You would not linger in shadows, you would rise and shine. because the moment you replace self-pity with self-awareness, you awaken to the power within you, you begin to create instead of complain, you stop begging and start becoming, you realize that your suffering was never meant to be your name but merely a part of your testimony. It was not punishment, it was preparation. It was not rejection, it was redirection. The key is to shift your emotional fragrance, stop wearing the spiritual cologne of complaint and start anointing yourself with the oil of expectancy. Speak of where you're going, not where you've been. Declare the promises of God, not the problems of man. Wash your mind with gratitude. Clothe your thoughts in praise. Put on the perfume of power, the scent that comes from knowing that even if everything around you looks empty, the substance of your future is already alive within you. Self-pity whispers that you are alone, but faith knows you are carried. Self-pity says, no one helps me. Faith says, my help comes from the Lord. Self-pity cries, I'm broken. Faith declares, I am being rebuilt. This is your choice now, to either continue wearing the perfume that repels the promises, or to cleanse your soul and make room for glory. Heaven is drawn to those who believe. Miracles respond to those who prepare. Favor falls on those who refuse to speak lack even while living in it. So let today be the day you stop embalming your life in grief and begin declaring resurrection. Let today be the day you silence the voice of why me, and awaken the voice that says watch me. And never again wear the perfume of self-pity. It is beneath you, and the promises waiting for you are far too holy to be drawn to anything less than belief. Fragrance of envy blocks the flow of abundance. There is a subtle poison that dwells in the hearts of many, not because they are evil, but because they have forgotten who they truly are. This poison is envy, a fragrance of spiritual lack, an invisible mist that surrounds the soul and silently tells the universe, I do not believe I am enough. Envy is not just about desiring what another has. It is deeper, more dangerous, and more deceptive. Envy is the silent agreement with the lie that God has blessed others more than you. It is a denial of divine justice and a rejection of your own path. It says, I cannot be fulfilled unless I have what they have, never realizing that such a thought is a spiritual curse that chokes the flow of abundance before it ever reaches your life. You see, abundance flows freely in a soul that is open, grateful, and aligned with truth. But envy creates resistance, a spiritual dam that blocks the rivers of provision and grace. To envy another's beauty, success, influence, relationship, or recognition is to ignore the unique fragrance you were born to release into this world. It is to stand at the gate of your own garden and curse the flowers in someone else's, forgetting that you too were planted for such a time as this. Envy is rooted in comparison, and comparison is a lie because no two destinies are the same, no two journeys are meant to look alike, and no two callings are identical in design or timing. Yet many suffer because they breathe in the perfume of others and believe they are missing something. They scroll, they watch, they listen, and with every thought of why not me? Or I deserve that more, they cloak themselves in a spiritual fragrance that repels abundance. Envy clouds the eye of faith. It distorts vision. It causes one to see life through the lens of scarcity instead of overflow. But the truth is, the abundance of another is never your lack. The favor on their life does not diminish what is coming to yours. There is no competition in the kingdom of God, only completion. What you celebrate, you attract. What you envy, you repel. That is the spiritual law. When you rejoice in the blessings of another, you are declaring to the universe, there is more than enough for all of us, and that belief, that fragrance, that energy, it draws provision to your door. But when you secretly despise the success of another, or harbor bitterness toward the elevation of someone you feel is less deserving, you send out the aroma of spiritual mistrust. You are telling the universe, I do not believe God is just. You are accusing the Creator of favoritism, and nothing blocks abundance faster than spiritual dishonor. The fragrance of envy will keep you small, not because God is withholding, but because you are pushing away the very blessings meant for you. Through your inner posture, you cannot receive what you resent, you cannot walk into what you mock, and you cannot carry what you have cursed in another. This is why some people live in cycles of delay, not because they are not called, not because they are not chosen, but because they wear the spiritual perfume of envy. It is an invisible repellent. Heaven cannot trust those who secretly hate what they claim to pray for. You must cleanse your soul of it. You must return to truth. You must anoint your inner world with the scent of celebration, gratitude, and divine assurance. For when you truly understand who you are, when you are awakened to the power, favor, and destiny written into your being, you no longer envy, you admire, you no longer compare, you bless, you no longer sulk, you prepare, because you know that your time is coming, your place is reserved, and your name hath already been written on divine doors. When you know the truth, envy dies. You begin to recognize that what someone else carries is confirmation of what's possible for you, not evidence of your absence. Their elevation becomes your prophecy. Their favor becomes your reminder. Their testimony becomes your announcement. But only those who remove the fragrance of envy will smell the incense of divine increase. It begins with awareness, realizing the small moments of resentment, the subtle thoughts of comparison, the quiet questioning of your own worth when someone else shines. These are not harmless emotions. They are indicators of misalignment. They are signs that you've forgotten who walks with you, who crafted you, who planted seeds within you that no one else carries. You were never meant to walk someone else's path. Your purpose is not a copy. Your timing is not late. Your favor is not missing. But until you believe this, you will live beneath your spiritual inheritance. So begin now. Detox your mind from the language of lack. Celebrate others out loud and in secret. Bless those who rise. Speak well of the favored. Release compliments where you once held complaints. For in doing so, you change your fragrance, you shift your frequency, you become a magnet for the same abundance you once envied. This is not psychology, it is the language of the Spirit. The more you rejoice, the more you rise. The more you honor, the more you are honored. The more you love, the more you receive. There is room for all of us. There is a garden with your name on it. There is a door that only your spirit key can unlock. But the key does not work when your heart is contaminated with comparison. Purify it. Free it. Let the fragrance of your soul be joy, not jealousy, admiration, not accusation, peace, not pressure, and you will see the heavens respond. The fragrance of envy blocks the flow of abundance, but the scent of truth, the awareness of your divine identity, that aroma cannot be ignored. Wear that, and everything meant for you will find you without delay. The scent of bitterness closes the gate of miracles. Bitterness is one of the most deceptive and destructive fragrances in the spiritual world. It often lingers silently, buried beneath our memories, wrapped in old wounds, hidden behind polite smiles and outward appearances. But make no mistake, this scent is powerful. It seeps into the atmosphere of your soul and shuts down the energy of expectation. Bitterness is not anger expressed. It is pain that has been rehearsed for so long that it has become identity. It is a perfume soaked in past betrayal, injustice, and disappointment, and it clings to you. Not just in moments of rage, but in silence, in waiting, in avoidance. It is a frequency that tells the universe, I no longer believe anything good can come out of this. And the universe God, the law of assumption, the divine mind only echoes what you believe to be true. Miracles cannot manifest in the soul that has chosen bitterness as its residence, because miracles do not operate in the energy of stagnation. Bitterness keeps the past alive, and as long as you keep feeding it, your future cannot unfold. You are living in reverse, drinking from a well that no longer exists, and wondering why your spirit is thirsty. But hear this, miracles are not absent from your life because you're unworthy. They are not delayed because you're unlucky. They are closed off because your heart has closed itself behind the bars of resentment. Bitterness is a defense mechanism the ego creates. When it feels abandoned by life, it convinces you that nursing the pain is safer than risking the fall again. But what you don't realize is that the moment you protect the pain, you lock away your healing. You become imprisoned by a memory, and that memory becomes your ceiling. The longer you smell of bitterness, the less oxygen your spirit has to breathe new possibilities. Bitterness keeps replaying the betrayal, the loss, the injustice, the delay, not because the moment still has power, but because you keep giving it authority. The scent of bitterness tells God, you failed me. It tells the universe, I don't trust anymore. It tells your future, stay away, I'm still bleeding. And so the gates of miracles remain closed, not because God is angry, but because your frequency has fallen out of alignment. Miracles are drawn to hope. They are attracted to expectancy, gratitude, Forgiveness, these are the spiritual aromas that open portals in the unseen realm and release blessings in the natural. You must decide what kind of incense you will burn on the altar of your life, the sweet aroma of surrender or the stale scent of cynicism. You may say, but they hurt me. Yes, they did, but if you keep letting that pain define your essence, then they are still holding your soul captive. Forgiveness is not for them, it's for your alignment. It's not about denying the wrong, it's about denying the wrong the power to shape your identity. Bitterness says, I'll never trust again, but trust is the soil where miracles bloom. Bitterness says, I'll never try again. But the divine says, try again with new eyes. Bitterness says, it's too late. But time bends for the one who is aligned with divine intention. You were not created to live in cycles of replay. You were made to evolve, to resurrect, to ascend, and resurrection requires release. You cannot rise while clutching the grave of what happened. You must trade your perfume, let go of the old scent of sorrow, bathe in the presence of divine truth, anoint yourself with the fragrance of new beginnings, and speak this over your life. I refuse to let what broke me define what builds me. I refuse to let the pain of yesterday sabotage the promise of tomorrow. I release bitterness. I release the false comfort of resentment. I release the addiction to old wounds. I open myself to joy again. I dare believe again. I smell the sweetness of miracles coming. Do not be deceived. Miracles are not just events. They are energies. They are outcomes drawn to a soul that believes. They are movements of heaven that respond to a life prepared in faith. If you are not seeing miracles, ask yourself not what's missing, but what's blocking. What fragrance are you wearing in the unseen? Are you truly ready or just religiously waiting? Bitterness may give you temporary protection, but it will never give you power. Protection keeps you from pain, power takes you through it, and on the other side of that surrender is the miracle you've been praying for, the right relationship, the divine opportunity, the fresh oil of purpose, the restoration of all that was lost, but only if you change the scent. Bitterness cannot walk into blessings. That is why some doors have remained closed, because they cannot respond to a heart that is still contaminated by yesterday. You don't need more effort. You need more release. You don't need to earn it. You need to align with it. Your bitterness cannot coexist with the blessing. Your soul cannot host both freedom and resentment. So today, make a new decision. Breathe in the truth that what happened did not break you, it built you. It showed you the depth of your spirit. It revealed the limits of your old self so you could awaken to a greater version. Stop telling yourself the story of loss. Begin telling the story of rebirth. That's the fragrance miracles respond to. That's the atmosphere that opens heavens. That's the scent that calls angels into motion. The scent of release, the scent of healing, the scent of hope, the scent of forgiveness. That is your new perfume. That is the aroma you must carry now, because the scent of bitterness closes the gate of miracles, but the scent of faith opens every single one. Wear wisely. The aroma of fear cancels out the presence of faith. There is no fragrance more crippling to the spirit than the aroma of fear. It is the unseen stench that whispers to the soul that God cannot be trusted, that the promise won't come to pass, and that danger is always waiting on the other side of obedience. Fear is not just an emotion. It is a spiritual perfume worn by the mind that has divorced itself from divine assurance. It is the odor of a heart that believes more in what it sees than in what it knows deep within. When you live in fear, you do not merely walk in caution, you walk in contradiction. You wear a frequency that makes faith ineffective. Faith is bold, active, expectant. Fear is timid, doubtful, and heavy. Where faith builds bridges, fear burns them. Where faith moves mountains, fear builds walls. And the tragedy is that many do not realize they are living in fear because they have called it being realistic. But what is realism to the world is rebellion in the spirit. For the one who trusts God, there is no such thing as too late, too hard, or impossible. Yet fear disguises itself as wisdom, as logic, as maturity. It tells you not to risk, not to believe too hard, not to dream too big, and in doing so, it poisons your inner world. Fear is a silent thief. It doesn't rob you all at once. It robs you over time. It makes you delay decisions. It keeps you in relationships that have expired. It convinces you to accept jobs beneath your calling. It makes you pray with caution instead of confidence. It trains you to lower your expectations so you won't be disappointed, but in doing so, it trains you to settle for a life that looks nothing like the promise spoken over you. Fear cancels out the presence of faith because they cannot coexist. One always silences the other. You cannot declare bold prayers while internally expecting failure. You cannot worship and worry at the same time. You cannot cry out for miracles and still prepare for disaster in your heart. That is the double-minded man, unstable in all his ways, whose prayers cannot pierce the veil because his faith is smothered by the aroma of doubt. The aroma of fear tells God, I don't believe you are who you say you are. It is spiritual amnesia, forgetting every breakthrough, every time provision showed up, every moment the impossible bowed to the name of divine authority. Fear causes you to forget the Red Sea that split, the fire that didn't burn, the lion that didn't bite, the grave that didn't hold. Fear reduces God to a man, weak and unreliable, a distant being who may or may not come through. But faith remembers. Faith carries the aroma of certainty. Faith walks into rooms it doesn't feel qualified for and says, if God sent me, I belong here. Faith steps into the storm and says, peace is still mine. Faith doesn't need to see it to believe it. It believes, and then it sees, and that is why fear must be renounced, cast out, and starved, because as long as you wear the perfume of fear, you repel the answers that respond only to faith. Heaven is not moved by panic, it is moved by conviction. The divine does not reward fear-based prayers, but responds to trust-filled declarations. Some are wondering why things are not shifting, why doors are not opening, why peace has not returned, and the answer is not always in doing more, but in believing better. What is the aroma your soul is releasing? Are you walking through life carrying the scent of what if I fail? What if they reject me? What if it all falls apart? Those are the mantras of fear. They are subtle, constant, and spiritual repellent. But those who carry the fragrance of faith walk with another sound. Even if I fail, I will rise. Even if they reject me, I am still chosen. Even if it falls apart, something greater will be built. That is the mindset of the miracle carrier. That is the fragrance that opens the heavens. You must learn to speak louder than your fears. You must declare your faith until your atmosphere changes, until the room you walk into begins to respond to the authority in your tone, until the thoughts of lack begin to dissolve because you have made your inner world a garden of divine belief. And this does not come by accident, it comes by discipline. You must choose what you will inhale and what you will exhale. You must decide whether you will smell of survival or of surrender. Fear keeps you surviving, faith makes you thrive. Fear keeps you stuck in cycles, faith opens portals of divine alignment. Fear will always have evidence: the failed attempts, the pain of the past, the betrayals, the closed doors. But faith is not based on evidence, it is the evidence. It believes in what has not yet manifested because it sees through spiritual eyes. It speaks the end from the beginning. It acts as if it's already done. That is the aroma that the divine realm cannot resist. So today, wash yourself of fear. Cleanse your heart of the lies it has whispered. Refuse to wear the scent of anxiety any longer. When fear says, be careful, let faith respond, be courageous. When fear says, you've failed too many times, let faith declare, this time I win. When fear says, you don't deserve it, let faith roar, I was born for it. The power is already within you. The miracle is already in motion. But only faith can meet it at the gate. Do not let fear keep you inside when faith is calling you out. The aroma of fear cancels out the presence of faith, but the aroma of faith releases miracles, shifts atmospheres, and unlocks the impossible. Choose wisely which fragrance you carry, because what you wear in the unseen determines what follows you in the seen. The essence of pride hinders the flow of divine wisdom. There is a fragrance in the spirit that seems sweet to the ego, but bitter to the soul. It is called pride. And it is one of the most deceptive perfumes a person can wear. Unlike fear or bitterness, which often scream their presence, pride whispers, hides, and camouflages itself as strength, independence, or even spirituality. Yet behind its mask lies a heart that resists surrender, a mind that refuses to be taught, and a soul that has forgotten its source. Pride is not always loud and boastful. It is sometimes silent, self-contained, and spiritually disguised. It is the inner conclusion that says, I know enough, I don't need help, or I'll do it my way. It is the assumption that you are the final authority on your own life, without realizing that such autonomy severs you from divine wisdom. Pride shuts off revelation because it assumes the throne. It hinders the flow of divine instruction because it refuses to kneel. It builds walls in the spirit walls that keep out correction, delay alignment, and block the clarity that only humility can bring. Many people pray, fast, and seek answers, but cannot receive them because the channel is clogged with the essence of pride. The voice of the divine cannot enter a heart already full of its own voice. The ego cannot hear what the spirit is whispering. You see, divine wisdom flows freely, but it only rests where there is room, and pride leaves no room. Pride fills the house of your inner being with the noise of your own logic, your assumptions, your need to control. It resists surrender and calls it strength. It mocks dependency on God and calls it weakness. It looks at the path of obedience and says, I can find a better way. And so it walks ahead of God instead of walking with him. It builds its own vision, crafts its own timing, and then becomes angry when nothing works. Pride forgets that you were never designed to be your own guide. You were never created to be your own source. Your mind is powerful, yes, but without divine insight, even the most brilliant intellect becomes a weapon of delay. The wisdom you need for your next level is not found in the archives of your memory or the brilliance of your education. It is found in the surrender of your spirit, in the humility of your posture, in the silence between your thoughts. The essence of pride blinds the eyes of the heart. It makes you believe you're fine when you're failing. It keeps you stuck while convincing you you're strong. It hardens you against advice, deafens you to divine correction, and desensitizes you to the still small voice that is always trying to lead you into abundance, peace, and purpose. And perhaps most dangerously, pride can be religious. It can clothe itself in spiritual language. It can say the right prayers, sing the right songs, and still deny the power of surrender. It can go through rituals without ever bending the will. That is why Scripture says, God resists the proud but gives grace to the humble. Pride doesn't just distance you from people, it distances you from God, not because God has moved, but because pride builds a wall around your heart and labels it protection. But it's not protection, it's imprisonment. And until you let go of that self-built identity, the wisdom that wants to flood your life cannot enter. Pride is a perfume the world celebrates. It calls it confidence, ambition, self-made success. But in the spirit, it smells of disconnection. It carries the scent of spiritual isolation. The one who truly walks in power walks low not in weakness, but in awareness of their dependence. They understand that true wisdom is not about how much they know, but how much they are willing to learn. They know that the path forward is not built by control, but by cooperation with divine timing and insight. You must ask yourself, is my pride costing me clarity? Is my need to be right robbing me of wisdom? Is my image more important than my growth? Because if it is, then the essence of pride has settled into your soul, and it must be cast out not with shame, but with humility. You cannot walk into your next season wearing the robe of arrogance. It is too heavy, too toxic, and too blinding. You must trade it for the garment of surrender. You must kneel not because you are weak, but because in kneeling you rise with a power not your own. Pride says, figure it out. Wisdom says, ask and it shall be given. Pride says, prove yourself. Wisdom says, trust the process. Pride says, you don't need anyone. Wisdom says, there is strength in community and correction. The choice is yours. Every day you either wear the scent of pride or the aroma of wisdom. But you cannot wear both. The Spirit knows the difference. Heaven responds to the heart that is open, teachable, and humble. That is the heart where miracles grow. That is the soul where strategy downloads. That is the vessel through which divine wisdom flows without resistance. If you want clarity, drop the mask. If you want answers, drop the pride. If you want guidance, drop the need to always be the guide. Let the essence of pride be broken in you. Let your soul be washed in awareness. Say, I don't know it all, but I'm ready to learn. Say, I don't need control, I need alignment. Say, I am not the source, I am the receiver. And as you do, the heavens will open. Insight will flood your being, answers will find you, strategy will rise in your spirit, the path will illuminate beneath your feet, not because you worked harder, but because you finally got out of the way. The essence of pride hinders the flow of divine wisdom, but the fragrance of humility invites it in. Choose your perfume wisely.